Dope. So after you have given some bear hugs to folks around the room, I want y'all to go ahead and have a seat for me. Brave New Voices, go ahead and have a seat for me. And because we're running a little short on time, we have an amazing, esteemed panel. Yo, BNV, check me out for 1 second, all right? So because we are running short on time, I would love for you all to begin to just go over the bios of the amazing panel that we have today. You have a few pieces of paper, and on those pieces of paper, you got some receipts of the folks that will be speaking today. Go ahead and do a little quick scan and rundown of the folks who are on the panel, because we're not going to have time for full-on introductions. Again, thank y'all so much.
Brave New? Brave New? I know it's been a long and hot day. But looking at the Twitter feed, y'all did some pretty powerful things today. And today is a little bit more serious than the days that we normally approach at Brave New Voices, because today we're really trying to have an impactful conversation, yes? You're all part of that conversation. If you have a phone, a cell phone, who's got it? Hold it in the air if you got one. Okay, if you got a cell phone, turn off the sound. Make sure it vibrates, but don't turn off your phone. Okay, turn off the sound, but don't turn off your phone. During this conversation, there are going to be things said that maybe inspire you to write a post, to write a haiku, to write a poem, to make a statement, to quote something that someone said on stage. We want you to do that. We want you to do that on the hashtag iTooAmAmerica, and we want you to do that on the hashtag iTooEd, E-D, iTooEd. Y'all with me on that? Then if you can post those things into one space, if you find that you have questions that you want to ask in this conversation, you can do that through your post. There will be someone who is aggregating through those hashtags, and we will try to get many of your questions to the group. We will also do a Q&A after this conversation, so you can hold on to some of the questions that maybe you haven't been asked or you haven't heard, and you'll be able to go to the mic and ask that question. Y'all with me? Just like I said on the first day, the theme is based on a poem by a poet who wrote it when he was 23 years old. The name of the poem, I Too, written by Langston Hughes. A 23-year-old wrote that poem. We're still talking about it in 2016. That's an example of the impact that your voice and your words can have. Y'all hear me? So this is a moment for you, yeah? And a powerful panel has been assembled of young people who represent your community poet laureates from places around the United States, and then distinguished adults who are experts in the field that they're engaged in. Y'all with me? This particular conversation is about the relationship between education and juvenile justice and its impact on young people, particularly its impact on you. That's like a writing prompt right there. That should have got a post. About 20 posts just went up on the hashtag just because I asked that question, right? Okay. Keep your phones in your hand. I want to welcome the moderator of this panel, someone who has been a staff member of Brave New Voices, has been a participant at BNV, has been a staff member at Youth Speaks. He now works as an arts administrator. This brother's name is Brandon Santiago. Give it up for him, please.
Thank you, BNV. I want to reiterate, today is not about me or any adults in the room. Today is about you all. Today's conversation is grounded and anchored in student voice. So I'm going to stop talking in a second, and I'm going to do what I'm really excited about doing. I think everybody's excited about doing this at Brave New Voices. I'm going to introduce some poets. Y'all all right with that? Yeah. That was whack. Yo, what? I said, are y'all all right with me introducing some amazing poets from across the country? Y'all good with that? Oh, they just woke up. Awesome. All right, first off, a future core member coming from Tampa, Florida. Tampa in the building, obviously. Please clap it up for the one and only 20 years old, Jessica Allen. Make some noise for Jessica Allen. Thank you so much.
Can I do it without the mic?
You can do it however you want, Sid. It's your work.
Can y'all hear me without the mic? I can't hear you. You okay?
Does she want the stand?
Can I? Yeah. Yay.
Jessica Allen, make some noise.
Georgie, Porgy, pigment pie, took your life, made mommy cry. Death by the hands of the piggies in the blue age. Don't beat skin, that's why they persecute you. Don't run too far, black boy, make great catch. This be American Pie from the burnt batch. How do you place a child in a chair that doesn't rock? In a swing set that doesn't budge? In a high chair with high voltage, are you buckling the child in for his safety? Why did his seatbelts resemble restraints? Is it too late for him to pray? Can he tell his mother goodbye? Are allegations enough for a nation to impatiently place a 14-year-old child in the hands of the reaper? Then complacently treat the case as a result of crime and punishment instead of the systematic and ethical murder of an adolescent. A mother's world can end in 24 hours. Apparently 84 days is sufficient time to acquire a killer and his motives. When he did it, what he used, how he did it strategically. Misconstrued words are enough to serve as valid proof. Base the case off facts. Facts are prejudice, preconceived presumptions. Desensitization can prepare a population to accept the annihilation of a nigger in pre-K. Sprinkle it with the dehumanization of the black male, then feed it to the public for consumption. So their tummies don't cause an uproar at the trial. So their mouths are too full to speak. Watch that American Pie choke you, and we wonder why we're not getting full off this junk food. We need help before they mini Jackson our ass. There is poison in our pie. Georgie, Porgy, pigment pie, took your life, made mommy cry. Death by the hands of the piggies in the blue age. Don't beat skin, that's why they persecute you. Don't run too far, black boy, make great catch. This be American Pie from the burnt batch. April 24th, 1944. They plugged cords into George Stinney Jr. like he was an outlet. Electricity never been so cruel, never been so merciless, never been so at home in black flesh. Electric currents never been so misguided. If only we could see from the chair's perspective. An inanimate object with more of a conscience. I bet you if it had lips, this is what it would say. Yo, I know the heat created me, but I ain't never been so cold. Forgive the power that I withhold. I swear I just do what I'm told. I apologize for what my bolts did, leaving a black boy's body jolted. I felt his nails dig into my arms like the ones that embedded Christ, son of the sun, calling his own child home. How they whip kings, plug them into false thrones, beat inferiority into black skin, baptize them in their own blood while claiming redemption. You are no savior. Just wolf in sheep's clothing, reminding us that cotton is the value of our lives. I am no car seat. Why is there a child on me? Why is he not screaming? Why is he so calm? Is he still breathing? Is it too late to shut down? Why haven't you turned me off yet? His fingers are melting into me. Yo, I'm wearing this dude like second skin. Unplug me, unplug me. Damn, unplug me. April 24th, 1944. I heard God tell me that my son had arrived. Alive eternally while internally I died, my mouth was dry. My fingers were shaking. I could feel the wires. My son is not a power strip. There are men playing God, plugging their controllers into my son, playing God. Black boy is Game Boy, Nintendo, meant to be played on PlayStation. Black boy is Game Boy. My son is never a game console. George Stinney Jr., the first child to be sentenced to death by electric chair. This is our American history. Speak his name. Our black boys are still being tried as motherfucking adults. Black boy is never Game Boy, period.
Keep it going for the poet, Jessica Allen from Tampa Bay, Florida. She said, my child was never a gaming console. Can we clap it one more time for the urgency and the relevancy of these young poets? So we got one more poet, then we're gonna start the conversation. Y'all good with that? I need y'all to show as much love and energy as possible to the young poet, 15 years old, coming all the way from Detroit. Clap it up, the D in the house. Eldrick Parks, make some noise for Eldrick Parks. Y'all can do better than that. Y'all can do better. Beautiful.
It's quite cold in here. Davidson Street is jagged, unpainted pigment, where RIP shirts mirror the image of the ones most dear to me. We can't count the constant casualties conjured up by the hand once that conversation finds its way at the dinner table. Auntie didn't want to ask the question, but that thought lingered in her mind as much as the silence did in the living room. As my fork plays around my plate, as much as I do the topic, as much as I remember my cousin, I seen his blood seep through her fingers, the hope of his tomorrow between her fingernails as the steel bullet puppets his facial expressions into a grasp of agony, burgundy blood balanced into the ground. Ground bumpy as the thought behind the bullet that found a home in his abdomen. You know, niggas never learn their lessons. They still boast when they drop black bodies, and Auntie hates to hear me say it. She's afraid I'm another casualty, another soon-to-be masterpiece from a dumb nigga painting my block full of black catastrophes. Me too, dear to the dumb who lollygag through the yesterday's tomorrow on the TV screen, once again giving their consent to be called just a nigga. Like dumb, becoming the tainted feeling of wrong down my esophagus when I rep my city more than I rep myself. Not me, as if I was born between the wrong two mentalities of those niggas and my loved ones. Loved ones like my niggas. Folded up dagger-like fingers and black and brown tattoos revealing their consequences like they opened up like a book. Plot twists all bundled up through every chapter. You see, I live where black lives, a cliche on accident. Like when accidents happen, help seems to show up late. Like when welfare paid, no food on the plate, and I think it's too late for my little cousin. That boy seen so much violence, he on bullet diet. Brain just like a sponge soaking up his brother's blood. Black skin smudged on the handle of that gun. While he reaching for revenge and that cycle once again grabs an adolescent by the neck and let him know his story's been told already. I saw his fate fixture in my soon-to-be history. No peace signs greeting me at these car streets. I keep on walking, getting exhausted on my neighborhood's precautions. I mean, you know, being a nigga with nigga dreams and nothing else but hope deeper in our pockets, which we can only find if we can manage to scoop the lint out of the way. Dumb, not being our mistakes, but what we were born into. Skin that told our future on TV, magazines, and court before we even knew it ourselves. It's hard to live and born to be dead. You see, when the weather gets cold, it freezes my bones, and when I talk, I find myself lisping my truth. Yes, my boys did it. My boys said it. My niggas, those niggas paint my future. They paint my fates, but never my face. I'm forever fixtured. I'm forever fiction. I'm forever distinguished as another constant casualty conjured up by another nigga. But I'm never me. I only exist between the teeth of those that think they know me.
Eldrick Parks, make some noise. 15 years old out of Detroit. Dope. So it's in that context, in that spirit of truth and power that we're going to start the conversation. Is that all right with y'all? Beautiful, beautiful. So panelists, we have an amazing group of panelists. Can we please give them a huge round of applause before we get started? We appreciate their time, thoughts, ideas. So panelists, I'm going to ask you the first question. When you answer, please say your name and why you're qualified to be in this conversation. Is that cool with y'all? Name and why you are qualified to be in this conversation in a minute or less. Everybody good with that? So the first question is I want you to describe to me as you see the school-to-prison pipeline and how in a country built on principles of freedom and liberty, something like this can even exist. So describe to me how you see it. The school-to-prison pipeline also includes your name and why you're qualified to be in this conversation. Anybody want to go first? Describe to me how you see the school-to-prison pipeline.
My name is Amir Suleiman. It's a pleasure and honor to be here with you. As you know, I'm a poet. That's what I do. And the reason I'm qualified here is just because you've invited me to be here, and I love you. The school-to-prison pipeline is the way that you were describing it, the way you were asking a question and framing a question as a contradiction to a country that was built on liberty and justice. And I think that's really the kernel of the issue, is that the country wasn't built on liberty and justice. And so it's really consistent. It's a consistent system from the very beginning of this colonial project, and the machine needs fuel, and black bodies are like black gold, you know, and they feed the machine, and so the ones that have to feed the machine have to be the ones without power to use the machine, or else, of course, if they have power to use the machine, then they wouldn't be fuel for the machine. So you have to find the parts of the society that don't have the ability to use the machine, and they make for convenient fuel. And I think that's why the pipeline, even the terminology pipeline, is like what you use for oil. And so you unearth the resources of blackness and brownness and feed it to the machine.
Thank you, Amir. And I also want to, clap it up for Amir Suleiman. I also want to remind y'all to please use the iTooAmAmerica hashtag. If you guys have thoughts, you're a part of this conversation. Thank you so much. Anybody want to go next? Please, yes.
My name is Nineveh Caligari, and I think I'm qualified to be here because I'm a lifelong educator. I have worked a lot on advocating for teachers as a way to advocate for youth, and one of the things that we document, so the way that I feel is the way that we treat our teachers reflects our values, because they're the ones who care for the young people. We have been undervaluing and taking away teachers' ability to teach fearlessly by treating them like Mother Teresa givers versus professionals, and I think that the school-to-prison pipeline is incredibly intense. I think that you all know this better than anyone, but prison designers look at fourth grade literacy skills and then decide how many prison beds they're going to build. I run something called the Teacher Salary Project, and what we do is we document for every single state, I have it for every single one of your states on my website, how much we spend per pupil and how much we spend per prisoner. In California, it's pretty dramatic. It's $9,000 per pupil and $47,000 per prisoner. And so I think that the school-to-prison pipeline reflects the values of our country right now, and that we actually can decide to change.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Other panelists, maybe your experiences with the school-to-prison pipeline, if you have been affected or know loved ones that have been affected by the school-to-prison pipeline or mass incarceration in general. Yeah.
So I'm Catherine Lehman. Is my microphone on? I'm Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights at the United States Department of Education. So it's my job to enforce federal civil rights laws in schools, and it is my job to dismantle the school-to-prison pipeline. And I am, thank you for that. And we're making incredible progress. I'm really excited that in a 2-year period, we saw a 20% reduction in overall rates of suspension and expulsion in schools nationwide. And that comes from the work that the Obama administration has done to lean in to say that there is a school-to-prison pipeline, to say that race disparities in the way that we treat our students in school is wrong, that it violates civil rights, and that the fundamental message of schools is to communicate to kids that we believe in you, we are prepared for you, we will teach you, and you are our future. And the school-to-prison pipeline is fundamentally diametrically opposed to that. So we're trying to change it.
Dope. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Definitely clap it up. Yeah, please. Mike, go ahead.
These young people, are they going to speak as well?
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. Okay, I just want to make sure. I am Michael Skolnick. I think I am qualified. I am the president of the fan club of this incredible poet and this incredible poet. I just started your fan club. So thank you for blessing us with those words, because they were incredible. Incredible. I'm the father of a 3-year-old son, Mateo Ali. I live in New York and Brooklyn. If I could just take a step back for a second, and when I hear the school-to-prison pipeline, I think there's, as Amir discussed, I think there's some historical context that I think is critical. When the uprising happened in Baltimore after the death of Freddie Gray, we walked from New York to Washington, about 100 of us, for justice. We walked 250 miles, took us 10 days. We did about 25 miles a day. It's an organization founded by the great Harry Belafonte called the Gathering for Justice. And we were in Baltimore the night Freddie died. Freddie died Sunday morning, and we were in church when Freddie died. And the uprising began Monday by young people in Baltimore. And we saw immediately the desire by the police to protect property and not protect lives. And I think it's important when we talk about the school-to-prison pipeline to take a historical context of what black people have been valued in this country from day one, which was property, right? And our Constitution, the initial Constitution, black people were not even a full person. They were 3/5 of a person, and they were slaves as property. And we have created, as Amir so beautifully said, a pipeline to create state property, right? So we went from slavery as property to state property, which is people incarcerated. And so this has context. This is not a new phenomenon as black people looking at as property and not as lives. And we are, as this country, we have, as white people, as a white man, I speak as a white man, as a privileged white man, we as white people, we have systematically created a foundation of our nation to oppress people of color. And the war on drugs, which began the school-to-prison pipeline, was a war not on drugs, but on black and brown people. And it failed miserably from our eyes, but from their eyes, it failed. It actually was very successful because it created a nation with the highest incarceration rate in the planet. So I will get to some remarks later, but how do we, the last thing I'd say, as someone who's the partner of education, she knows better than I do, we fund 25% of our education system around the country from property taxes. Think about that for a second, from property taxes. So how do we tell you as young people we're going to fix your education system if it's all still based on property?
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. Okay, we'll get a couple of more to answer this question, and I want to hear from the young. So go ahead, sis. Absolutely.
I'll raise my hand like a student.
No, you good. It's a conversation.
Hi, my name is Soledad Alfaro. I suppose I'm qualified to be here. I was picked by Future Corps in a town hall. The school-to-prison pipeline, what it represents to me is the audacious concept that capitalism actually is. When you create a system that is built off of death, that is built off of imprisonment, it is almost always systematically, one, unsustainable, of course, right? Because if you're not educating your youth, and you're not putting them through school, right? There are only so many white kids that you can put through school easily and only so many kids who are going to good schools. If most of them are going to jail, you're going to become an empire. It's going to be Rome all over again, and you will collapse because you will have no new leaders. Hashtag 2016 election. And along with that, when you're thinking about the people who are involved in the school-to-prison pipeline. So I'm representing Philadelphia. In Philadelphia, we have a standardized tests, and as many of you know, standardized tests are implemented in schools, and most of them appeal to students who are non-POC. They're easier for them to take, and especially black students have a hard time taking standardized tests. And in the 3rd grade, if you are not up to par on these tests, that's how the state of Pennsylvania, the government, decides how many prisons they will build. And some of these prisons are public institutions and some of them are private institutions. So whenever you take a future and you decide to end it at 9 and 10, that's very counterproductive. So that's my opinion on it.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Can you hear me? Great. I'm Victoria Sams. I'm here from an organization called the National Endowment for the Humanities, and we work giving grants to educational institutions. So we work hard to make the school part of that pipeline not send young people in that direction. But I guess in some ways, the qualifications come from you and your input and what you're doing. My intuitive response to this, I don't know the stats, but I certainly don't think this pipeline is natural or inevitable. I think that you all are key to dismantling it, and it's through the power of your voices, the power of your ideas, the power of your connections to each other, and the change that can come about through building those connections and expressing your most multidimensional, fullest selves, and realizing that potential. And I know that sounds a bit esoteric, but we try to provide teachers with the resources to help students do that. So that could be material resources, could be knowledge, history, understanding of and reading of the poetry, but it's also spiritual resources. It's the connections teachers make with each other to share those ideas that they can then pass on to you. So the idea is by inspiring teachers, we can turn teachers and those schools into places that inspire you to reach your potential instead of cutting it off.
Dope. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Anybody? Yeah, go ahead, brother, please.
Hello. Yeah, my name is Nkosi Nkulaleko from New York City, Urban Word, NYC. And other than that, I would say me being here, I was paired as the other youth poet laureates. I'm a youth poet laureate in New York City, and the other youth poet laureates were paired in certain discussions based on like their evaluation of our work that we've been doing over a course of time. And it's actually interesting, though, I'm placing this because I was been homeschooled actually throughout my entire life. So this is, but I do have a niece that. Like every day whenever she's coming over to visit my mom and everything, like spending the nights and talking about the different stories and the forms of punishments that's happening, but in the school system, which is very similar and alike to prison prison forms of punishments and how they treat people, even based on tonality, skin color, and everything, and where they're from, like their ideals, religion, these different aspects that comes into play, and how they treat certain students, which then kind of reflects how the students are pressured into certain spaces after they're graduated, and it's not ideal. So I guess that's my bit.
Appreciate that. Thank you so much. And then we have one, then we'll go up to the follow-up question. Thank you for that. Go ahead, sis.
My name is Nikira Bush from Charlotte, North Carolina. And I guess I'd say I'm qualified to be up here because, I spent 19 years of my life in the American education system, so I feel like I, got some experience by now. I guess for me, going back to what Amir said on the school-to-prison pipeline is more like fuel for a machine because, it's just a revamped version of slavery, basically. Because when you look like even at the 3/5 compromise, in which they were counted for votes, non-voting slaves were counted for votes. Today, most people who are incarcerated come from city areas, and prisons are normally in rural areas. So they take these people and arrest them, stop and frisk or other ways to get them, like a war on drugs, to get them into those prisons. Felons cannot vote, obviously, we know this, and so they're actually counted for votes. Prisoners can be counted for votes in those rural areas for people who make the same policies that get them in prison. So it's just a revamped version of the 3/5 compromise. And then you add in the prison industrial complex. It's fuel for a machine. I know they were saying that there are a lot more in-source jobs to prisons. They in-source more to prisons than they do outsourcing to outside of the country because it's cheaper. And I was reading that one of the best paying jobs in prison is sewing American flags. And so, but you have this thing where you need to fuel this machine, and that's what my opinion is on that.
Wow, thank you, sis. Appreciate that. So I'm curious, please, yes, absolutely.
Okay, my name is Hawa Rahman. I'm here as a Detroit Youth Poet Laureate. Detroit. I definitely think I'm qualified for this conversation because I just graduated from a disgusting public school district called Detroit Public Schools. Yeah. Seriously. Does anybody know what happened in Flint, Michigan? The water crisis, that terrible incident. The emergency manager that was over that whole crisis was transferred to Detroit Public Schools, and he was not a good person. Let me just tell you that. His name was Darnell Early. And with that whole everything with the mayor, Rick Schneider, they were just trying to get the schools to shut down before we get to graduate and not pay all the teachers, and we were doing walkouts, sickouts, all of this other stuff. And what I say about this is that, the world's population is growing by the second. Resources we have none. Overflowing the cup of the earth, killed off in mass sums. We are being sacrificed to control the capacity. Having the audacity, drastically but casually, ripping away our families absently. Flooding out my city with the blasphemy of their lies, getting more of that gold when another one dies. Rich Rick doesn't click on the pick of those guys who Mr. Early promised he'd give real supplies. They're dead and gone. We all know why. Our existence isn't worth the struggles in their perfect lives.
Mic drop. Wow. Thank you so much for that, and I'm really curious to hear your specific experience in the Detroit public schools, but I want to ask a question really quickly. In the current context of America and the genocidal mass killings of black and brown boys, one of the byproducts of the prison industrial complex, school-to-prison pipeline, is militarized police forces on school campuses. So my question specifically to the young people, what are some of your experiences with police officers on your school campuses, and what are some alternatives to keeping our school campuses safe for our students?
Well, not just black and brown boys, it's not black and brown women too,
Absolutely.
and non-binary. So for me personally, I'm privileged in the sense that I look racially ambiguous and I'm not often stopped or anything like that. But I have a really good friend, and she is, very obviously black, and she goes to Temple University. Temple University has this thing called Temple Alert. Temple University is currently the largest gentrifying university in Philadelphia. They're gentrifying all of North Philly. And what Temple Alert is to keep the students safe. It's a description of an incident that happened, or a description of somebody who is a criminal, right? And so one time we were on the train and she got a Temple Alert, and the description of the man who they said to look out for looked just like my father and looked just like my brother. And so that's how vague it is for us. When they're saying it's the same person over and over and over again, it's a system implemented to profile and not to seek out justice. There's a difference between rehabilitation and incarceration and building more numbers for revenue. People should not be used as, what is the word I'm looking for here? People should not have commission. Yeah.
Thank you. No, perfect. Absolutely appreciate that. I'm curious, other folks, your experiences with police officers on your school campuses, or what are some alternatives to keeping our students safe in schools apart from having militarized police in high schools?
I think, I mean, John Lewis was 23 years old when he gave his speech, before King gave his speech on the March on Washington. Diane Nash was 19, right? The folks in this room have better answers, certainly I think, than I do. And so I'm inspired by young people and their solutions, and I think what's happening now in this country, and young folks are telling us this loudly, right? When you hear these beautiful words of these poets, right? These are cries of freedom, right? These are disciples of the political truth. And we as folks who are getting a little bit older, we have to listen. And what I'm hearing is that it's not getting worse, it's getting uncovered. Black people have been killed for 400 years, right? This is not new. And we as older folks, we have to listen to it. Maybe it's not just fixing a system, but reimagining the system, right? So the two-party political system doesn't work. Capitalism doesn't work. It works for me as a white man. It works great for me. Donald Trump, if he becomes the president, will not bother me at all. I will be fine. So I have to make a decision as a white man. Do I want to support myself or support this young man next to me? And so when I think of policing in schools, there's no need for policing in schools. Young folks have told us that over and over again. We don't want them there. We as older folks have said, well, we need to control you, so therefore we're going to put them there. So when I think of systems, the policing system, the education system, the political system, these folks in this room are telling us we don't want the old systems anymore. We have solutions to a new system, and not just fixing the white system that's been in place for 400 years and making it fit. Now, she's done extraordinary work. Eric Holder and the DOJ and Arnie Duncan, when they passed those guidelines and told schools that we see racial disparity, that was a light bulb for America. We need both. It's not an either and. We need the quick fixes and the quick threats and the quick solutions, but we also need to hear more from young people of what are the long-term solutions, because we have to just dismantle the system, not just fix the system.
I think what you're saying, clap it up, I appreciate that, thank you so much. I think what you're saying too is we need young people at the center for designing these new systems, not just asking them when things go wrong. Thank you so much. I know you had a comment as well.
Based off of that, about, security guards or police officers in schools, I've been pretty lucky, to go to schools that there's not an issue with that. I guess for me, because I'm normally in upper level classes. But one thing that people think about when they think about level of people of color, students of color in schools is, they start talking about integration, and there's actually segregation in one school. You go to AP and IB upper level classes, you're not likely to see any students of color, so me being in AP classes, I often am shielded by the number of white students in my class. So, example, I feel there needs to be more of a value for black students or students of color, because my brother, he's gone through a lot. There was a story he told me. He was really good from K up until 3rd grade. You know, he was always ahead. In 4th grade, he had a teacher who sat all the students of color together by themselves. And actually, there was one day in which some of her candy had gone missing. She pulled out 9+ black students out of the classroom into the hallway and said, "I know you stole it, so I need a letter, an apology letter." And since then, he's been dealing with other teachers who do not have value. And normally in standard classes where there are normally more students of color, they're normally more, they don't have experience. They're younger teachers who don't have as much experience. Normally white women who are coming in and already see you as an issue. They come into the classroom and see you as an issue. Same infractions that a white student would do, she calls a black student, calls security on that student. So there needs to be a value for black students and not an air of suspicion just for them being like, why are you here? Why are you in this AP class? Because out of most of the time, most of the disciplinary actions I've seen are taken out on students of color and for the same infraction. So there needs to be a value for students of color in schools.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, sis. Please, absolutely.
I wonder about policing in the schools. This is, and to what our brother was saying, as far as that it's not new. It's just being uncovered and revealed, and the violence of police against black and brown people and other minorities is not new. It's just being unveiled. You said that. I thought about a story, and I remember this was really a turning point in my life. And I was in junior high school. And firstly, my mother moved us out to the suburbs of Rochester, to Penfield, because the education was better, even though we couldn't afford really to live there. So we had to live without the lights on. We had to live without, but again, the types of sacrifices that she had to make in order for us to go to a proper school. And there were very few black people in my school. Not until I went to North Carolina A&T. We have Greensboro here? Yeah. So I went to a black school for this reason, but there were very few, all the way up until high school. There was only one other black person in my school, meaning there wasn't a black teacher, black janitor, black administrator, anything. And when I got to high school, there were some, and we would kind of, stick together and support each other, right? And so it was at the end of the day, and one of the other black students comes up to me, and so he's all panicked and breathing hard and stuff. He said, I can't remember the names. He said, Todd called Jamal a nigger, right? But he came to me because I was, I guess, the leader of the black student union or whatever. It was kind of informal, but I was like the guy that you had to go tell if there was something going on. What are we gonna do, Amir? Like in Spike Lee's Malcolm X when he's having the ice cream with Sister Betty, they hit Brother Johnson over the head with a baton. He's gonna do nothing because he's not Muslim. So it was that type of situation. So I'm walking out, the whole school is coming out to the bus loop. And I'm thinking while I'm walking downstairs, because for me that was a green light for violence. Nigga was just like a green light. But then I was like, maybe he didn't really say it. It's like maybe someone just wants to start, to see some, the big black guy whoop somebody. So I'm thinking of all these things, right? And so I'm trying to be very careful is the point that I'm making here. And so I see him among the sea of other kids in the school. I see the back of his head. And I come up near him, and I say, you can't go around saying things like that, right? Just to see how he would react. And he stops. And then he keeps walking, right? But I'm still not convinced. So I come around and I come in front of him and I say, you know what I'm talking about, right? And he looks at me, he averts his eyes, he tries to walk around me. So I'm just moving in front of him again, right? So I move in front of him, and then a security guard hits me so hard, like wraps me up so hard, everything went white. They brought me into the office, they called the police, they charged me with intimidation, they suspended me. And I'm talking to the assistant principal, and I'm saying, I didn't hit him, I didn't threaten to hit him, I didn't accuse him. I'm thinking I'm using really good skills for a 10-year-old, you know what I'm saying, on how to conflict resolution, you know what I'm saying? I would think maybe, I should get a ribbon or a gold star or something, you know what I'm saying? But I remember she laughed. It's a trip because she looked like Hillary Clinton. But she laughed, I remember. I remember she laughed out loud to my argument, saying I didn't do anything wrong. And her laughter and her response to me was like, and I learned this from this day forward, I never forgot. It was to say, you are not allowed to make me feel uncomfortable. Your black body has to remain in a place that makes us feel comfortable. It doesn't matter what you actually do, it's about how I feel. So the police come to the school, I'm suspended and everything. I remember that day, I was like, oh, I'm a black man, and this is how, I'm a black male, because I was a boy, I'm in junior high school. But so this ties into the issue of the policing, is that it is this feeling, and the shootings as well, some of it is a hatred, more of it is a fear. More of it is that the black body is so intimidating. And then from that day forward, I gave them hell. I was the blackest. I was like Huey in Boondocks. I was that kid.
Thank you, Brother Slick. Please, yes, sir. Thank you for that. I appreciate that, man.
Just going back to what you were saying, going back to my school and the way that they police certain students, I've noticed that not just black students or students of color need to be valued, but teachers of color, because at my school there often are not a lot of teachers that can represent students. And then even in that, I had a French teacher who was, he was an immigrant from Togo, and he taught my French class, and some of the black and white students would act up in the class, but he only felt safe sending the black students out. He felt threatened, his job was gonna be threatened if he sent out these rich, upper class white kids, because their parents are the ones that were, giving money to the school. So he often, didn't feel like he could do that. And also just looking at the way they police certain students. I remember when I was like in 7th grade, I had a friend brought 3 hunting knives to school, about that long. Got like, I think, like a little talking to. And then for field day, I brought like a water balloon slingshot. And they like pulled me out of class, and they were like, "You cannot do this." Like, it was like plastic. And I never even realize how messed up that was till I got older. And this girl had 3 hunting knives at school for a whole week, and got like a talking to. So like just the fact that some of those security guards or teachers don't feel like they can adequately punish the students who need to be punished, because they feel like, okay, well, I need to send certain people out. I need to get into class. Okay, how about I send this black student out? So that's one thing that I've noticed in schools.
Thank you for that. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, and I think also the acknowledgement of like how disgustingly handicapped good educators are. With the closing of schools, you're seeing the increase of police within school systems because you have more kids in the same schools. So in most big cities, different neighborhoods have different gang rivalries. In Philadelphia, the same is true. They closed Germantown High, which is one neighborhood, and so the kids from Germantown High are now going to Martin Luther King, which is in Olney. There are rival gang lines. So there's an increase in violence that is a production of need to survive, right? And then you have teachers who are in these classrooms with a 40-to-1 ratio and have no way to properly talk to the students and have no way to properly educate them. And then you have a consistent aggressive violence of you're wrong, and we don't want you here, period, and an increase of police. And my issue with that is how are we not giving our educators funding? How are we not making the classes smaller, but we are increasing the police force within our schools?
Wow. Thank you for that. Yeah, please.
So these stories are all really devastating, and I do want to make sure that we don't walk away from this conversation without hearing the kinds of forward progress that we are making in the country. My office has closed more than 4,000 investigations related to school discipline in the life of this administration alone. We are aggressively working on trying to address this issue. We do see very much the kinds of stories that you're talking about in our investigations, and when we find that, we find a violation of the law. And we do require that schools change their relationship to school police, that they change their relationship to school discipline, that they bring in training, and we see really terrific changes. So just to tell you a few examples, we entered into a resolution agreement a few years ago with the Oakland Unified School District. And one of the components of that agreement was that they would provide supports to students who were returning to the school system from the criminal justice system. 350 youth had social workers who were working with them as they come back to school to make sure that they understood which classes to take, that they had supports for successful choices in school. And in the first year that they had those social workers working with the youth, 76% of those youth did not recidivate. So we have really concrete proof principles, right? That if we support our kids will succeed in school. We also entered into a resolution agreement with the Tupelo School District in Mississippi just a few years ago. And in the first year after we entered that resolution agreement, they saw a 9% reduction in the rate of student suspensions. And the teachers are reporting the students owning their behavior in class, greater success in school. We're really thrilled about the kinds of changes that we can see when we have positive discipline rates in school, when we're really supporting our kids. So the kinds of stories that you're talking about, we do see still persisting. We do see kids being treated exactly the ways that you're describing, and we're there for them. We're standing for them. If kids will trust us and come to us with those stories, we will be there for them to try to change those practices.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Anybody else want to answer the question of what are alternatives besides having police on our high school campuses to create a safe space? Please.
I'll just add really quickly, I think a lot of people know that your Hillary Clinton comment did make me laugh because the majority of teachers are all white and everyone is running around and saying, clearly we need to make sure that faculties overall represent kids, and there is no evidence. I'm half Mexican, half white, and I can teach kids that are a lot of different ethnic backgrounds, not only just half Mexican, half white. But when a young person goes to school, there should be somebody, if not many, and families are the same. There's a lot of evidence that somebody on campus, if not a handful of people, need to be culturally relevant to that young person, to that child. So faculties need to be diverse, and I, as you know, I advocate for higher teacher salaries, and that's part of the reason, because 60% of our teachers have second jobs, and in undermining this profession, we have made it very, very challenging to have diverse faculty. So part of me gets frustrated when everyone's like, we need diverse faculties, we need faculties to represent kids. We can't ask people to any longer take a vow of poverty. So we've been tracking, there's gonna be teacher shortages all around our nation. We've tracked teacher shortages in 48 states. California is gonna have a teacher shortage of 100,000 teachers. So we need to make the job a really sizzly hot, wonderful professional opportunity where teachers of all backgrounds can teach fearlessly. Otherwise, we're going to continue having the same stagnant, monocultural teacher dynamic, teacher shortages, and it's going to continue to be painful.
Please, go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, and I think also we need to diminish this idea of capitalism within every single thing we do. There is such a push for every single kid to go to college, and such a shaming of kids who do not go to college. Not everybody has to go to college. College isn't for everyone, and I think there needs to be systems implemented that allow people to choose a different path, that allow young people to say, I would like to go to trade school, or that allow young people to say, I would like to just write. Or, and not saying like cut the core curriculum, not saying that at all, just saying that we're making sure that we're not trying to funnel kids into college that they can't afford, that they end up dropping out of, and that they have no resources in. And especially for Black kids, going to a PWI, like, and you're from like whatever 22nd and Diamond in North Philly, like you have nothing, you're the first kid to go to college, like, and you're the only person who looks like you, who sounds like you, and people are, that's a different thing. But like, in order like to diminish a system in which kids need to feel comfortable, they need to be proud, and they need to not feel ashamed. And Black kids are so conditioned to feel shame from the moment that we walk into any facility that we're in, whether it's predominantly white, whether it's predominantly Black, like ran by white people, that's what we're conditioned to see.
I appreciate it. I think that's a great point, and I actually want to open that up to the rest of the panel. Is college still the best pathway to success for students? And if it's not, what are some of the alternatives?
Well, I guess in my views, there are definitely a lot of alternatives. I actually don't go to college, but there is definitely a kind of barrier that you face in certain institutions or certain places that you try and implement your art, your craft, or your skills, whatever it may be, and how they prefer certain people with certain degrees, certain letters behind their names, as opposed to other people who have the same or even like higher, skills. And I just feel like that, I don't know, I guess during these past couple weeks, through certain events, it's kind of difficult to have like faith in many different systems that we are like using our tax dollars or that we're supposedly voting for. And in terms of like, let's say dismantling the system, I feel like definitely we can just totally destruct it by, in terms of like just not going to their colleges at all. None of us going to those colleges, none go to schools. We're trying to fund our own schools or our own community-based like institutions that we can like harvest on our own. And I mean, that can be also very difficult in certain times, but you know, I feel like that's a definite thought that we can start to feel like implanting.
Oh, thank you for that. Go ahead, sis. Absolutely.
One thing that I don't think that at this point college is exactly good. Not so much because of the educational aspect, but more so because of the expense. And I guess for me, not even the expense, just the knowledge about college. Because at my school, I'm not sure what the ratio of students of color, I'm not sure the amount, but it is predominantly white. It's in an upper middle class white neighborhood. And a lot of these students, their families have been going to college for years. You know, their wealth goes back years. So, you know, when they hit probably 8th grade, they're already taking the SAT. They're already doing that because they have that knowledge. And I remember my whole process for college, I was trying to figure out what to do. I had no idea about how to do anything. I qualified for all of these fee waivers and all of this stuff because of my income, but I really was lost. And my mother, she went to cosmetology school. My dad just got his associates at a community college. So they really didn't have the means to educate me on things. And I feel like there needs to be an education for communities of color and lower income communities, because not knowing how to get to college stops you from even trying. And you know, there's so many, there's like application fees, there's so when you are trying to find a way out. I know for me, I do come from a lower income household in which not a lot of people have gone to college, and it gets very stressful when you're dealing with school and trying to get your college stuff together, and you don't even know what you're supposed to do to get into college. So, you know, that's already a gap, and I feel that there needs to be an education about not even just college, but as you were saying, some sort of resources for people who don't know what to do next. So.
Yeah, and I think like going back to a solution, rehabilitation over incarceration, there is a budget for those police officers to be in these schools. So why don't we have social workers in schools? Why don't we have people in schools who can actually help kids figure out what they need, so we're not simply just herding cattle from room to room, as well as educating kids on what they need. A lot of the times kids drop out because they're told that they're not going to do anything, or they just end up getting their GEDs, or they go to college because it's like you have to go to college, you have to go to college. So I think there's a budget. I know in the school district of Philadelphia, my mom works for the school district of Philadelphia, in the budget, there is a section that's put aside for school security, and it's a large portion of that budget. And I think that instead of cutting so much of the other stuff, they should move that over and put it into other systems that can help kids who are in need.
You know, piggybacking off of that, one of the best things that happened to me was an after-school arts program that I participated in, which was free for all of the students in that area. It's actually called Studio 345. It's a really wonderful program, and basically, you know, they give you bus passes to get there. They have snacks afterwards, and then not only are they getting students from schools, they're getting students who are referred from police officers or who have petty crimes, and they're like, okay, what can we do for you instead of putting you in jail or messing up your life? And they send them to this after-school arts program. And I've seen lots of people. I mean, I have friends that have gone there. I've been going there for 3 years, and I've seen people who get there, and there's like music production, there's like a recording studio, there's photography, there's film, there's all these different arts classes, and some students end up, oh, I can do art. They end up finding another pathway. Some students become like recording artists. Some of them go on and do things that they didn't even realize they had the opportunity to do because of programs like that. And so we went to go lobby for funding for that program. But, you know, programs like that are what actually helped me. I was able to get so many recommendations from art teachers who were there to get into the school that I got into, which is School of the Art Institute of Chicago. So, you know, and it's just, that is what really helped me. So those programs are always being cut. The arts programs, the after-school programs, those are the ones that we need in communities to help, help against that.
And it's the idea of exposing students to multiple possibilities and multiple skill sets that they can learn and acquire in their very communities, in the communities they live in already.
Yeah, and so this is actually how I got into poetry too. So, that's one of the best things that happened to me to help me get to where I am today.
Appreciate it. Like you wanted to answer that as well. Go you, and then, right after that, we'll follow up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to speak to what you both said so beautifully, because I think you're hitting on how we have to work at it from both sides, or from multiple sides, that it's about removing those barriers and about taking ownership. So, college might be a path that doesn't seem possible or doesn't seem welcoming, and transforming that is as important as revaluing all those other paths that might be chosen. And ways of doing that, I think, are building networks to help students who might be first-generation students who haven't had that exposure and that familiarity and don't feel like or are not made to feel that they belong in that space and that space is their space. And I've worked with a lot of students teaching at the college level. I worked a lot with Posse Foundation students who came in, and they had each other. And I think the philosophy behind it was that if you have a cohort and you have people who you can turn to for that kind of advice and the kind of knowing the codes that seems in some ways very mystifying, you can start to reshape those institutions from within and also change them and make them work for you. And that's ultimately, I think, would make those institutions better to the degree that we can work with those institutions. I think we need to really change the way college works and is envisioned, and I think that the involvement, the voices of all of you, your generation, you can change the way that we're moving in college. I think the teacher salary project that Nineveh's mentioning, there's a college level variation on that, which is fighting the adjunctification, the fact that adjunct faculty are the kind of labor force teaching, and they're very disconnected and underpaid, undervalued, unable to really help the students that they're working with in any kind of consistent and effective way. And that's the sort of path that higher education seems to be going down. Right. And I think there's a way in which we can reshape that.
Right. And how would he create a space for young people to be at the table designing those solutions? So I'm going to let you finish up, and then we're going to go on to a couple of more poems. Then I'm going to open it up to the audience. So we'll go 1, 2, and then folks, please, iTooED. If you have any questions or comments, then we're going to open it up to you all to ask some questions to the panelists. So we'll go ahead and go with you, and then we'll let you close out. Absolutely. No problem.
So last school year, I had the privilege of having older siblings that already went through this whole process of going through this disgusting school district, and they gave me advice on ways to go back and apply for this scholarship and that scholarship. But I realized that there are other people that don't have older siblings like that. Like, who in here is a graduate from any high school from here? Yeah. And who in here is in high school but doesn't have anyone who is a graduate from high school? Wow, yeah. So if you don't have that kind of person who can tell you how to work it out, how to get through it, how to apply for what you need to apply to, I think that is what can help you if you have that kind of person. So if people who graduate, and maybe if they don't have a younger sibling who is also going through a terrible school district, maybe they can give back and go back into their schools and help people out who are trying to get through it, I think that would be a really
powerful. Thank you for that. Absolutely. And we'll go ahead and close this part of the conversation off with you, Kat.
So I just want to make sure that we make sure that when students are making choices about whether to go to college or not, that's your choice. Don't let somebody say to you that college is not for you. Don't let somebody say to you that this is what your future is. You decide what your future is. And what I've seen already today among all of you is that you're poets, that you have a beautiful life of the mind, that you're unbelievably kind and caring with each other. You've created a community here. You have the bravery to come together to a new place where you don't know people, to try something new, to share your voices. That's what college is. And it's a space to be able to share your mind, to live the life of the mind, to grow with other people, and to create lifelong relationships so that you are better sustained, better able to go and live the future that you want. All of you deserve that. All of you should fight for that, and we should be a country that is ready for you with it.
Thank you so much. Can we clap it up for the panelists thus far, giving us a lot to chew on? Super appreciate it. I want you to give a high five to the person on your left and your right real quick. Go ahead and give somebody a high five to the person on your left and your right. And with that being said, I'm going to introduce a couple of more poets. Is that all right with y'all? I said I'm going to introduce a couple of more poets. Is that cool with y'all? All right, 16 years old, coming from Seattle. Please clap it up for Carolyn Newhouse. Make some noise.
In school, we learn how to slim down enough to fit into the seams of our textbooks. Kids are taught to whitewash our tongues to match these pages. See, Maria threw out her accent with her 7th grade lunchbox, and I learned to leave my slang at home like it's a weapon or the lesson no one wants to learn from, like ethnicity is something you're supposed to grow out of. Be cheerleader, be prep, be football star, do not be in between. Write yourself into a box like margin so you won't be marginalized. Paint on enough makeup so no one can see what you really look like, and you wonder why kids shoot up schools. Like this is not a war zone, like we are not all soldiers drafted into this battle for the different kids. K through 12 is a million to 1 chance of surviving. Glow up or be snuffed out. No ABCs, just fight, flight, or freeze. You see, the backpacks are tear-proof, but not bulletproof. In school, you have to be locked and loaded. Replies always in the chamber of your mouth. Comebacks kick back against your jaw like a shotgun. Grow boobs before a backbone. We are taught how to stand in line, but not how to stand up for ourselves. How to lock our lips if it means the star quarterback can play in the next game. In American history, we are reduced to civil rights movements, internment camps, and slavery, a sugary version of oppression. We learn not to ask questions about our culture as if white supremacy is the answer we always knew, but were never taught. So many kids don't fit in anywhere, so what happens when you don't click with the click? We learn to assimilate before we learn to spell it. Our problems were always multiplied when you divided us from our identities. In world history, I learned how to read a compass but still couldn't locate my confidence. It's hard to focus on negative ions when there's so much negativity. Hard to read books written by people that don't look anything like you. Hard to learn in history class when they teach you fractions by only publishing segments of your struggle. In 2 years, I will have my diploma, and I will have learned so much. I just can't help but wonder, how much will I lose in the process?
Make some noise one more time for Carolyn Newhouse. Clap it up for getting educated in our communities, educating ourselves. So with that being said, I'm going to open it up to the audience after this next poet, so please be thinking about questions that you have for our panelists. But I'm about to introduce the last poet. This poet is coming from across the seas, an international poet. Can y'all please make some noise? 17 years old, coming all the way from Trinidad and Tobago. Can you please clap it up for Shanique Saunders? Make some noise.
Okay, so I'm losing my voice, so please bear with me. It is 8:45 a.m. and the roll is being called. I watch as the teacher struggles to pronounce my name. She attempts once, twice, 3 times, failing each time, eyebrows knitted close together, eyes squinting as if this would squeeze the pronunciation from the page before her. I sit waiting for her to ask me for the proper pronunciation. I wait until I could feel the weight of each eye in the room rest on me. She's looking me directly in my eyes. Then altogether forgets about pronouncing my first name and says my middle name. Emily. See, that was the first real thing I learned in school. That African names that don't follow the slave master's rules was still hard for some white folk to swallow. I'm unable to rest easy in my chair. My chair is urging me to get up, to say something, but Emily can't. See, I spent most of my life without a name, not having anything to identify with. This land is not my home. I had to learn how to speak all over again because I was told that my original accent only accentuates my skin that stands out like an accent in a Spanish word in an English sentence. I needed to pick my struggle. So I struggled to silence the beat of African drums in my tongue. I tried to steady the beat that rose up in my words every time I speak. I chose the struggle I could control. Because I could not control the fornication of my ancestors as they allowed the sun to make love to their skin out of wedlock. I chose the struggle I could control. But now, this 7-letter, 3-syllable brand given to me by my parents became a brand esteemed higher than any designer name. It became alive and danced to the beat of African drums in my tongue. It moved to the rhythm that rose up in my words every time I speak. Through the fornication of my ancestors came a child of I belong, a child of sun-kissed skin and rowdy hair, a child of my name is Shamiso, and it is of Shona origin. It means astonishing event, marvel, and I sometimes sit and marvel at the fact that it took me 8 years to learn how to say my name. See, they taught me names that brought back too many painful memories, names that my forefathers were forced to wrap their tongues around, their tongues forced to love every syllable of your English name. See, I'm sorry, Mr. Wordsworth, but I cannot relate to sonnet composed upon Westminster Bridge. Since slaves did not have the chance to take long leisurely walks on Westminster Bridge, they were too busy working. See, this is why I was given my name. My name is my shield, my voice a two-edged sword. We need to learn how to say our names that are written in blood on the hands of many white men. How does it feel to wrap your tongue around a strange language, to force your American tongue to love every syllable of my African name? It is 8:45 a.m. and the roll is being called. The teacher looks at me. Shamiso? See, I taught my teacher something she did not learn in school. You either learn my name or choke on my roots. My name is Shamiso. Put some respect on that.
For time, make some noise. For 17 years old, the poet out of Trinidad and Tobago. Put some respect on it. Holla. In that voice, in that spirit, in that context, I'm gonna open up the conversation to you all, and I'm gonna encourage you all, young people. There are literally millions of young people, and you've heard this before, I'm gonna say it again. There are literally millions of young people on a daily basis silenced, never allowed to share their thoughts or opinions. So I'm gonna encourage you all in this moment to be brave, and not just be brave by asking a question, but I'm gonna ask y'all, do not hold back. Do not hold back. Share your true and authentic thoughts and comments. And we can't divorce our experiences with mass incarceration and education from the actual narrative that we see every single day. I know I can't. I'm a high school dropout twice. I don't have a diploma. I never graduated from high school. I can't divorce that from this conversation. So I'm asking you, bring your experiences into the room. We need your voice. Somebody already texted, all this talk does nothing to reassure us that things are gonna change. And I'm not saying we're gonna change it in a conversation or in a moment, but I do think we can start here today. So please do not hold back. Is that cool with y'all? Y'all good, brave new voices? All right, so with that being said, the first question is an awesome question, if I do say so myself. And you wanna have, if you have a question that you didn't get a chance to tweet, go ahead and line up right where those microphones are at, or I can walk to you with my joint. I got 2 legs. All right, here we go. All this talk, so this person said, all this talk does not reassure us that the problems will be fixed. We need receipts and radical action. So the question is, how are you going to actively implement resources for black and brown students in the public educational system? I'll open that up to the panel. How are you going to actively implement resources for black and brown students in the public education at Quiet Prophecy? Okay, I'm gonna handle this. I'm gonna handle this. Quiet Prophecy P at. So go ahead, anybody, how are we gonna actively implement resources for black and brown students?
So we give federal funds to schools. That's one way that we're actively resourcing schools. And the law that has been the law now for more than 50 years is that schools cannot use federal funds to discriminate, period. I am as aggressive as it is possible to enforce that law, to make sure that our students, all students, will have equal access to opportunity in schools regardless of who they are, based on the school-to-prison pipeline, based on English language learner status, based on access to high-rigor courses within school and across schools, based on access to equal resources in schools. We are aggressive about making sure that those dollars are spent for our kids.
Awesome, awesome. We'll go, Mike, I'll let you answer that, and then we'll get a couple of folks from the audience. And if you have a question, just feel free to stand right at the microphone. Yeah.
So I was a theater major, so I don't have receipts. So if you want to Google anything I say to make sure what I'm saying is correct, I encourage that. I just came from Cleveland, Mississippi last week, which is near Tupelo. Cleveland, Mississippi has 2 high schools, a town of 12,000 people, 1 black high school, 1 white high school. It has, for 60 years, has rejected integration, has fought the Department of Justice to integrate the 2 schools. Department of Justice just last month has, after 60 years, has signed a decree, a court order forcing them to integrate. If the 2 schools integrate, you'll become 1 high school, 12,000 people in the town, 70% black, 30% white. The white people told us they're gonna leave. Right? Now, as a person who lives in New York, who's from Brooklyn, we think sometimes that we're better and that the South is racist and this is just racism. But New York City public schools, 85% people of color, 85%. White families have taken their kids out of public education in urban communities and put them into private schools and created the charter system to put them to charter schools. So if we want to have a real conversation with receipts, we want to keep it 100, right? We have to change the way we fund schools permanently. If we are connected our school funding to property taxes, there is no secret to why schools in poor communities do not perform. There's no secret. We are not funding them the same way we fund schools in predominantly white communities and upper class communities, because they are funded by property taxes, they have nicer property, and we have not created a system in this country for black and brown people to own property. So I'll just finish. So we can have a beautiful conversation and lie to you as young people and say it's gonna get better, but New York City public school system is 85% black and brown. I had a lady come to my house. I'm privileged. I have money in my pocket. A lady, when my child was 1 year old, a 1-year-old child, a lady came to my house in front of my girl and me and presented where my son should go to public school in New York City. $200 an hour she charges to tell parents how to put their white kids through a system. And I looked at the schools, and you could tell by the demographics which schools performed. Forget where they were located. If a school is primarily black, they underperform. Primarily white, they perform well. So I'm a product of public school my whole life through college. But we fund our public school system in this country with a racist tinge because we know black and brown people don't own property. We have to change that.
I do want to say one thing, and you don't become a civil rights lawyer if you're not an optimist, so I say now I am an optimist. My mother rode the back of the bus. My mother attended racially segregated schools in Richmond, Virginia. I did not, my 2 daughters do not. It has gotten better, it will get better. It has not gotten better fast enough. We have not moved as far as we need to move, but we have moved in this country and we are moving in the right direction, and we have to keep that up.
I don't want to argue with an attorney, but I would say this. Thurgood Marshall at the Supreme Court in 1953 said we must move with speed that has not been quick enough.
And we did, and we are moving it. He fought that case. He dismantled Plessy versus Plessy versus Ferguson. We had racially segregated schools by law,
But we are
and
more
we don't
segregated
now.
today than then.
And
Why?
so we have progress still to make, but we are making it, and we can. Do not think that you cannot.
Hold on, one mic. Let's go ahead and practice that rule. One mic. It's important that we listen, right? Dope.
I'm done.
Awesome. Okay, cool. I just want to shout out a couple of things. First and foremost, I want to open up your statement as a question. So what are solutions? If we're funding schools currently by property tax, what are solutions, young people, to not do that? What's the reverse? And I also want to shout out a dope statement from Kosi, the Future Corps member. He said we need to build our own learning institutions, new models, new disciplines, interdisciplinary and intersectionality. So I want to shout that out. So we'll go back and forth between tweets and folks at the mic. I saw you first, so we'll go 1, and then we'll go 2, and then we'll get to you after that, and then we'll go ahead and take a text from the tweet sphere. Go ahead.
Check. All right.
It's on.
So my name is Sin7. I'm from Providence, Rhode Island, right? So back home, I work at this nonprofit organization called ASU20 Youth, and my job is to make clothes. I make T-shirts, right? So the nonprofit organization has a very good relationship with Rhode Island's training school. So my boss will go over to the training school along with a couple of other mentors, but my boss's job is to go over there with screens and shit and make sure that they can make clothes and express themselves, and we work to help them. But when I walk in and I'm like, yo, Nick, this is a really cool shirt. Who made this? Well, I'm not allowed to say. Well, it was a kid from the training school? Yeah. They're not allowed to say their name, say anything that they do, and I feel as if that's like so dehumanizing. Like they're not anything. Like they are being silenced, and they are not meant to be seen. They are meant to be something that is represented through something, but never represented as them, as an individual. They're not allowed to show their faces on anything. They're not allowed to do anything. And I feel as if some of them may have ended up in that training school because they were put in a system in the first place where they were set up to fail in the first place, and they were gonna end there regardless, no matter how hard they try. And that sucks. So I wanted to ask, if you guys were to run a training school or to run a system like that, what kind of systems would you implement, and what would you change?
Please.
Hello. No? All right. Oh, lit.
Yeah.
I think, I'm a kid, so I'm gonna be a little bit of an optimist. But I think for me, in a lot of contexts, like probably that situation probably also has to do with a lot of copyright infringement. If they're selling the T-shirts, a lot of the times they don't want to give credit to the kids because that means they have to pay them. Because they're making a profit off of it. And that happens a lot of the times. And I think an issue is, and we see this, and this is a whole nother topic, but we see this in Black culture all the time, where our culture is used and it's sold and it's given to everyone else, and people make a profit off of it, and a lot of times we aren't compensated. And I think we need to look at examples of places where we can compensate kids for their ideas and reward them for doing such beautiful things like BNV.
Yeah, real quick, to say something about that, we sell the shirts for like $15 each, and because it's their materials and they have to buy it and stuff, they take like $10 and we take $5. So I don't know if that happens at the training school, but I know for us, like, they do throw us a little bit of something. And plus, I work there, like, for money, so they do make sure that kids have an opportunity to get employed and be working in art.
What was your name, brother? And where you from?
Sin7, Providence, Rhode Island.
Awesome. Can we clap it up for my man real quick? Appreciate that. So for the folks who are asking questions or giving comments, can we please try to keep them as concise as possible? We want to try to see if we can get everybody on the mic. Is that cool with y'all? And also, before you say your question or comment, say your name, okay? So we'll go over that way.
Hello, my name is Maya Abrazizi, and I'm from Portland, Oregon. And I really like how you brought up the point about capitalism being a system of oppression. I personally like to think of capitalism as kind of a triangle, because you have the very few people at the top who are usually like rich, like white, straight guys, and they have a strong, like a base of oppressed people, well, people like oppressed people who kind of allow them to succeed. And capitalism, according to Marxist theory, does require a strong proletariat. And so, and I like how you brought that up, but it also brings up the point in my mind that we can have all of these like short-term kind of Band-Aid fixes, like for example, funding schools in a certain way. But if we have this resounding system of capitalism that is a system of oppression, will we be able to achieve any actual long-term sustainable progress for as long as we operate within a system of capitalism, or do we have to have some sort of a revolution in our economic system to change the political system? I was wondering what your thoughts were on that.
Appreciate the question. A, can we maintain our current system? Or B, how do we dismantle the system of capitalism in our country? Was the questions that I heard. I'll let any one of y'all feel free to.
Maya, thank you for your question. And I think what your question indicates is that there are systems and within systems. And it's just like healing the human body. In Western medicine, there's a lot of specialization. So I'm just going to fix your kidney. But I'm not dealing with what's in your gut, or I'm not dealing with what's in your liver. I'm not dealing with your pancreas. I'm not dealing with your mood. I'm not dealing with how well you are loved and how well you love and things like that. And what you're saying about the larger idea of the economic system made me think of something that I was thinking and I realized I didn't say. And I was sitting here thinking, like, why have I not said this? And because it sounds a little bit ridiculous is why I haven't said it. But I'm going to say it now. I hope you understand this as a response to what you're saying. I'm not trying to circumvent what you're saying. But this is for you and all of you. And I know there's answers that you want, and there's answers that I want, and there's solutions that you want, and action items that you want, and action items that I want. The key really, in truth, without exaggeration, is love. If you love yourself and you love each other earnestly, the police in the schools are nothing compared to you. If you love yourself and love each other truly, then the mass at the bottom of that pyramid, if they love each other in truth, those few at the top can't contest their power. When it comes to the way that people are shamed in the school about college or not college, or this economic strata or that economic strata, is the prerequisite of it is that the love for self and the love for one's people has to be weakened in order for any of these systems in order to prosper, including capitalism. Capitalism necessitates, a prerequisite for it has to be the weakening of the love of self and the love of their fellow human beings. If that part is not, I know it sounds absurd, I'm talking like a poet, but I mean this in a very literal way. I'm being very genuine and serious in this, is that even if we dismantle capitalism, but there is not love, then know that people will oppress people forever and ever and ever. If we change the president of so-and-so wins instead of so-and-so, but we don't love each other, then the people will oppress people. If people love things more than they love people, if we value property more than we love people, however the schools are funded, if we don't love each other, it will remain just a different mutated forms of oppression, micro or macro oppression. So, because many of us have only little power, then use the little power that you have for the micro loving that you can inside of your own body starting, and inside of your own home, and the people sitting right next to you, and love them with a sincere love. And this isn't hyperbole and this isn't romantic. It is survival. It is survival.
Thank you. And I appreciate that. I think the question is, if we learn to institutionalize hatred, how do we institutionalize love? How does love become a part of our everyday high school experience, or school experience in general? Thank you for that. We'll go you, and then I want to get your question over here. Go ahead, sis.
Piggybacking off of that, I believe that one way to do that is to teach us about ourselves in school. Because looking at my curriculum, my whole high school curriculum, we every year except for my junior year, we read Shakespeare. We read The Great Gatsby. We read The Crucible. We read Frankenstein. We even had a whole unit on Anglo-Saxon literature, on European literature, right? And the issue for me is I'm not learning about myself, nor am I learning about the people around me. I'm only learning about the people who already are in control. So I don't know, my own history. I don't know, basically, just like she was saying, at 3rd grade is when they start to say, okay, you can't read, this is where you're going. So I know when I was my senior year, I finished all the books I had assigned for class, which are all Anglo-Saxon literature, all of that. And so I decided to go for myself and explore the bookcase. And that was the first time I'd ever read a book that was from someone else. I read The Absolutely True Story of a Part-Time Indian by Sherman Alexie. And that was not available for everyone. That was something, optional. African American Studies class is optional if you have it at your school. History is all blanked out for the people who are already in power. So for me, I was like, if those people in 3rd grade that couldn't read, have struggles, they're not gonna go and seek out books about themselves. They're already thinking that they're not there. So for me, we need to be taught about ourselves in school. I need to learn about everyone's history, and that's the issue, because people go out and they're ignorant about societal issues because they weren't educated in school. And so, like, that whole love, by educating us about ourselves, about each other, that love can go on. But we need to get that in curriculum in schools first. So that's my idea.
Yeah, please, you. But how do we tear down anti-black Eurocentric curriculum and bring culturally relevant curriculum for the entire year, not just for a month or a portion of a semester,
right? So for me, another book that I read was The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks Sells. If you don't know who Henrietta Lacks was, she was a black woman in the 50s who had cancer and died. But before she, when she died, they took her cells out of her body without her permission, without her knowing, and used it to create so many vaccines, and basically all of our modern medicine is based off of that, right? That's a book that I had to go find myself to read. That was not taught in my biology class where it should have been taught, because that is the basis for biology. So for me, that something as simple as saying, hey, Henrietta Lacks, not in February, teach me this in December, in May. Don't say it. And also one thing, even at my school, they do focus on black history, but it's such and such was the first person to do this, such and such was this. I need to know about redlining. You need to teach me about issues that are actually affecting black people. So for me, not to water it down to give us this, oh, you're happy now kind of thing. I don't want a month, I want equal rights. So for me, that curriculum needs to change to where, okay, well, this unit is Anglo-Saxon, this unit is African poetry, this unit is, poetry from like Japan. We need to get that. We need to get those different cultural, and it needs to be taught in we need to know about like biology. Henrietta Lacks is the basis for biology. How are you not teaching me this in biology class? So that needs to be changed in the curriculum to fit us.
And we need to invite young people to the table to help design that curriculum that they're being taught. So we'll go 1, 2, and then we're gonna get to you after that, brother. So go ahead, boom.
Yeah, I'll just say that in certain spaces there are definitely limited forms of knowledge of accessibility to certain writers and readers, and we have to, as she beautifully said, reaching out herself, and so I feel that also. In spite of my pessimistic views for certain school systems, I do believe that there's also a need to support your local public libraries. They definitely have some great programs across the board. In New York, there was this program, Junior Scholars, that I was part of. And so basically, they're talking about these different activists, artists, painters, philosophers, black, and then just kind of making this parallel between the folks that was often taught in this Western European structure in their schools, and showing the opposite side. And also, there's a whole big web. We would say that maybe people say it should start at home, but then the parents are also dealing with some craziness in terms of their work and job formats, and so how they're not able to have enough time, with children or other certain situations that happens internally. And I feel that in a way that there's definitely the time that people spend inside of school is being kind of lengthened in certain spaces. Like my niece, she's only 11, and she's in school from 8 to 7. And so that's kind of crazy, and where you have when being in school structures for all that period of time and learning about these other forms, other people, and then you're stressed out. You don't want to learn about other folks, And so I feel that coming back home and the parents are tired. This form of self-love, I feel like it does have it does start at the home, but then there's very it's very difficult when you have all these different oppressive forces, like kind of making this divide by stressing the mind in these periods of time. But I feel like local public libraries and the home structures, people in our communities definitely have a lot of information, and just reaching out and having these community discussions, going to your community. Like I've noticed that, sorry, don't want to be talking too long, but in my community whole ground projects, there's like definitely meetings ever so often, about like certain things happen in the community, crime rates, or like certain politics in terms of like the local the local politicians that we're needing to vote for, or like help our certain communities, parks and everything. And I feel like being engaged in those situations are definitely a way of heightening your...
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. Real quick, y'all, we have about 15 minutes left in this conversation. Y'all have been amazing. Can you clap it up for yourselves real quick? Y'all have been super dope. And I want to make sure that we maintain that level of respect that we have had throughout this entire conversation while people are sharing their thoughts and ideas and feelings and experiences. Is that cool with y'all? Dope. So I'm going to let you wrap this part up, and then I want to make sure that we get, so even folks on the panelists, can we make sure that we keep our answers concise so that we can try to hear from everybody? Thank y'all.
Yeah, I kind of want to go back to the capitalism question and the idea of systems. Amir Suleiman made a really good point when he talked about things being machines. And the thing about a machine is that, one, black love automatically breeds revolution, and we're seeing that. And the thing about a machine is that it serves a purpose. It is built by hand, and it is made to serve a purpose. A gun will never be a toaster. A gun will always be a gun. The purpose of a gun is to kill people. A system that is created to kill us will never be ours. So if we're thinking about having, in regards to loving ourselves, that is the beginning of the revolution. That education within our communities, like this poppin' young lady next to me said, is the beginning of a revolution. But I think that we need to understand, like my man's over here said, capitalism does not work. And it is a system, it is a machine that is constructed to serve a purpose, and that purpose sucks.
Thank you for that. We're gonna hold off. I just want to make sure that we get, yeah, go ahead, brother. Please say your question or comment. Appreciate that.
I'm Eric. I'm from Kansas City. And my question was, well, it was more of a comment, but I think my question is going to follow up. But in Kansas City, I attended Raytown High School. I don't know if y'all know anything about Missouri or not. But basically how their school is partially funded is they get paid for our attendance. So like basically the more we go to school, the more money the district gets. But like our school we haven't received like new football gear, new textbooks, new nothing. Like the cafeteria food is trash. Like it's horrible. Like I want to know like where is all this money that you're getting for me sitting in this chair receiving an education? Where is it going to? Like what? It's not though. I don't see it going to anywhere because it's not going to our teams. We haven't had any good gear in a long time. Our football program is not good. None of our programs are really that good. And it's like I feel like if you're gonna get paid for me to show up every day, if you're gonna receive money for me being in the classroom and you're not even doing your job sometimes, then I feel like there should be results. And I guess my question would be like, how do we, well, first of all, and a lot of people don't even know that they get paid for us being there. Like a lot of students that knowledge is not accessible to them. That's something you'd have to go to the district and ask questions and meddle with to find out. But I guess my question is like, how do we get like, as far as like equality when it comes to students and the district, I guess.
And how do we even get transparency about where resources are being spent, right? So I want to leave that to anybody up here.
I'll
Please.
say one. Is this working? Did you say your name is Eric?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Eric. How are you? There's an incredible amount of waste in a bunch of different places. One is testing. Another one is actually textbooks because they're going to be antiquated soon. Another area where there's an incredible amount of waste is teacher turnover. And then the other area that's really exciting, and I hope you're as excited about it as I am, is administration. There's an incredible amount of waste. You can look at LA School District, the 80,000 employees, only 30,000 are the teachers. What are all the rest of those people doing? Some of them are incredibly important and incredibly essential, not all of them. Also, the salaries, for example, in San Francisco, there's a limited amount of funds. District office, $17 million. So I think that your point is incredibly well taken. Had teachers' salaries kept pace with per pupil spending, an average salary in our country would earn $120,000, but the money is not going into the classroom. So I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I think if all of you are all on Eric's mission to figure out where the waste is and why it's not getting to you, I think you guys could accomplish a lot.
Thank you so much. Anybody else want to share a thought or comment on that? Appreciate the question, brother. I want to real quick share a tweet from someone, and the tweet is, how are we going to hold white teachers and authority accountable for policing and limiting black bodies and dreams? So if anybody wants to answer that question, yeah, it's how are we going to hold white teachers and authority accountable for policing and limiting black bodies and dreams in schools? And then we'll get to you.
One thing that I feel, even through this conversation, is that people in power do not need to be speaking over the people that they are oppressing. So, and I have witnessed this, I'm not, just recently, but I feel in that case, we need to be in the conversation. If you know that you are coming from power, a perspective of privilege, then instead of saying the same things we're saying, we know that this is going on, right? We need to be in the conversation. So to hold those people accountable, we need to be in that conversation. We need to be the educators, we need to be the legislators, we need to be in that area to hold them accountable. I feel that instead, there needs to be a transparency, like I said earlier, but also accountability to those people. So we need to place those people that are being oppressed in a platform that they can speak up instead of person who is oppressing saying the same thing that we're saying. So I feel that black people need to be, or people of color need to be in that space. They need to be the legislators. They need to be the educators. So.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I also think there is an issue when we have to figure out how do we discipline our teachers in order to know how they have to discipline their students, or how do we hold the people in our schools responsible for the actions of our students. And black people should not have to educate white people on how to not hurt us. You just shouldn't hurt other people, I feel like. I feel like that makes a lot of sense. And the fact that, I'm not saying you're wrong, I'm saying that she shouldn't have to say that. We shouldn't have to hold you accountable. Just don't hurt us.
Thank you. So cool. So really quickly, we only have time for maybe 2 more questions, but I want to say this real quick. We don't need a room and a microphone and a stage to have these conversations. In fact, I think sometimes these things inhibit us from actually having authentic, needed conversations. So I'm going to encourage y'all, take this conversation outside of this room and space, because the most important conversations are happening with you all in your communities anyway. So we have time for 2 more. I just want to apologize to all the folks who didn't get a chance to say their comment or question. It's just kind of the constrictions of time. So yeah, please go ahead, and then we'll go to you on the far left, my far left.
Amir, let me hop in real quick. I asked that question on social media, and it was intended to reach a certain person on stage, and they didn't answer it. Is that cool?
Please.
Okay, so I meant to ask, I'm sorry, I didn't get your name. You? Yeah. The question I asked was, wait, hold on, let me pull it back up. It was, how can we change the education system to make AP and, wait, no, that wasn't the right one. I had a thread on Twitter, sorry. How are you gonna hold white teachers, authorities accountable for policing and limiting black bodies and dreams? Thank you.
My view is that we need to hold all of our teachers accountable to all of our students, so that everybody who is in a job to educate the students is focused on educating the students. And the way to do that is to be in school, to be serious about school, and to speak up when you don't like what you're hearing, and to make sure that you're voting and that you're making sure that your elected officials are also clear and serious about who it is that we put in our schools and the job it is that we ask our teachers to do in our schools. So I'm hoping that we aren't in a position where we think that it's principally white teachers in schools with black and Latino bodies, but we actually think that we have diverse teachers in diverse schools, because that's who we are as a country and who we need to make sure that we have educating all of our students.
But how does that happen? How do you hold those people accountable?
Exactly.
Vote,
go to the school board, be on the school board yourself, speak up to the teachers, let your principal know what you want. Those are
My
the
thing right
systems
now
work.
is that we're speaking up to you and you're not listening. You are telling us that you are taking action, but we don't see it. We don't see it. Right now we are frustrated and we are scared because this is our education that is in jeopardy, and we understand that you are making a difference, but tell us about it. And it's not even that we know that you guys are working to your best ability, but you're not including us in the conversation. We are a part of this school system. We are the people y'all need to listen to, the people that we need to be on that board standing next to you. We need to be there making different curriculums with you. So don't tell us, please don't tell us that we take action, that we need to take action by voting and doing all this other stuff and talking out loud, because that's what we're doing and we're not being heard. And I'm standing here and I'm trying to tell you, I respect, I don't mean to get upset and to yell, and I understand that right now that does not look good, especially that I'm yelling at a whole, little court of people, and that's gonna, you know what I'm saying? I respect each and every one of you as who you are and what you do, but I need you to understand that we cannot go any further if you do not put us in the system next to you to make different curriculums.
Really
just let me make sure I do respond.
Answer the question.
1 second.
So let me make sure I do
So I just want to
respond.
say, first and foremost, you never have to apologize for your passion. We appreciate, we celebrate that. We need that. So never apologize for your passion. And secondly, coming from a space of love and restoration, I definitely want to give you a chance to respond. Please.
So one, I just want to say thank you. First, I do hear you. That is why I'm here. That is what I'm doing, is listening to you. And I hear you're upset. I think you should be upset. You have a right to be upset, and you should be voicing that upset. And also, I don't think you should ask anybody to put you in a seat of power. You are in a seat of power. You need to claim it. You need to
No,
take
we're
it.
not. I'm so sorry.
We're not in power because...
Sweetie, can I... Thank you
ahead,
so
Mama.
much.
Go ahead, Mama.
I'm so sorry. That is so beautiful that you think that highly of us, but we are not. If we were in a position of power, we would not be having this conversation.
All right, so couple of things. Beautiful.
When you talk about voting to put different educators, voting to put different government officials into systems, it doesn't apply to us. To be a black kid and register to vote, it is one of the most difficult and tedious things to even understand, especially if you go to an out-of-state school. You have to get a different ballot, you have to be registered somewhere else, you have to have a driver's license sometimes. It is hard and it is tasking. And a lot of the things that you're saying come from a place of privilege, where you understand that these are solutions and that they are ideas, but the fact of the matter is that we are oppressed, and that you cannot tell us any different. That this is a system made to kill us. This is a system made to demean us. And I totally respect and appreciate you being here, because you definitely don't have to, that's not in your job description, but she's not being heard. That's her frustration. She's crying because you're telling us what you think we want to hear. Our question is, how are you gonna hold people accountable? Why do we have to hold you accountable for killing us?
So I wanna just make sure that you hear, I am a black woman. I had to get registered to vote. I went to public schools. I am the Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights, working to fight for our rights. And I do hear you. And I am saying to you, what you're doing right now is incredibly powerful. And it's not enough. We haven't hit far enough. We haven't made enough progress. But you're not being ignored, and you're in a community that cares about what it is that you have to say.
Then how do we make it enough?
So
you keep fighting.
We are fighting right now. We are talking to you. We want you to understand, and I understand you're listening, but as us, I can't vote. I can't go out and vote. I'm not old enough. I'm still in high school. I'm still under the system. I'm still scared. Right now, I'm speaking to you as a person to person, telling you and letting you know that we have black and brown children all over this country afraid of this education system.
Yeah.
We are not learning what we need to learn. We are not doing what we,
So real quick, I want to.
My thing is, at the end of the day, we can speak all we want. We can yell all we want. We can write all we want. We can do exactly what we're doing in this room. But if you don't take action and take it to the boards and tell them, hey, this is what this youth said, and I think that this is how we revolutionize the education system, nothing is going to happen because we don't hold that power. Yes, you are a black woman, but you are in power right now. We are the minorities. We are being oppressed. Our voices are being oppressed, and we need you to take that to them and tell them, I need you to be the speaker for us because our voice can't travel that far. And I'm trying to get my voice to travel that far by talking to you, by asking you these questions. That's the only way I can.
It's one of many ways you can, and I'm telling you, I'm hearing you. And I really appreciate the strength of feeling and your commitment and your willingness to speak up.
Piggybacking off of that, tell us what is accountable, what is punishment, what is the punishment for these teachers that when this happens? Tell us what is that punishment?
So before you answer that, really quickly.
Is it like 5 weeks with pay? Is it like, suspension, just like the same police officers who were killing people? What kind of punishment is that?
Well, I mean, there are teachers who don't continue in the classroom. There are teachers who don't get to keep doing their job. There are many teachers who are doing a terrific job with their kids and supporting them.
What is the punishment?
There's a variety of punishments. There's not a single punishment.
We have time.
I am unclear how it is that I became the person that you're upset with because there's a teacher someplace you didn't like. There are 16,500 school districts in the country.
The reason that you are the person right now is because you come in here saying that you represent these people, right? The people that can make change, right? But you're not being transparent. So when you decide not to meet us halfway, we're going to come to meet you. And basically at this point, what is that punishment? What happens to these teachers? I've seen some teachers do horrible things, come back the next week. Why are they not stopping? What kind of punishment that is so weak and not a good punishment that they can come back and keep doing the same thing they're doing? Why does this keep happening?
Well, it keeps happening because that's the world we live in. But there also is a punishment that happens to them.
We have to respect the mic so we can listen. To get an analysis, we have to listen first. So let's respect the mic, please.
There are a variety of punishments available. Sometimes they're meted out well. Sometimes they are not. When they are not, we need to speak up. We need to say that we want to see that change. That is the system that we have, and that is operating the way that it can operate better. I don't know how to answer your question. There are a variety of punishments available.
Thank you for saying that.
Thank you.
That's what we should have heard initially, is that you don't know how to answer us.
So check it out. With that being said, can we please clap it up for the bravery of every young person in this room to be a part of this conversation? I think that's really important. We also, so check it out. We also acknowledge, my family, my community, 1 second. We also acknowledge that there are gonna be no solutions that happen in this specific conversation that are gonna transform a system that has been around for 400 years, right? So I'm asking y'all, I appreciate you being here. We also know we can't blame a specific individual for systemic issues. So I'm asking y'all, take this conversation outside of this room, because that's the only way you will be heard. And I'm encouraging y'all with the same enthusiasm and passion that y'all brought in this room, shut stuff down, and I mean that. Otherwise, we're not gonna get the results. Who cares about it? I don't care, real quick, I do not care about an answer from any panelist in this specific moment. I care about actual change for our people. And I'm telling y'all, young people, you don't need permission to be great. And the best way to predict the future is to create it. So y'all already have this. I appreciate y'all. I think this was the start of something potentially special, as long as we hold ourselves accountable in this room to keep this conversation going. So again, thank you all so much. I appreciate it. There are 2 young people in the spirit of making sure that every young person within reason and to the best of our abilities is heard. There are 2 young people who were promised a spot today. So I want to end with a question, and I also want to end with a poem, if that's all right with y'all. Is that cool? So I'm going to bring up a poet, and I'm going to bring up a young lady who's going to share a question that hopefully leads to actual solutions outside of the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C., right? Because these solutions need to be thought out and designed in communities that we come from, right? So with that being said, I got someone who's coming all the way from Pine Ridge So I want y'all, Pine Ridge. If I'm not mistaken, that's a perspective that we haven't heard as to this point. So I want y'all to please clap it up for my homie from Pine Ridge. Make some noise for Marcus.
So I was invited to be a panelist up here, but as you can see, I'm not up here. So I'm from Pine Ridge, which is an Indian reservation over in South Dakota. Y'all have probably learned about it in history, about Wounded Knee Massacre, Crazy Horse, Sitting Bull. But beyond them three things, like a lot of people don't know about indigenous peoples. And here at this dialogue, this conversation here, that was one of the perspectives that wasn't offered here. So a lot of people in here probably already heard this poem, but I'm gonna keep on spitting it as many times as I can here. You call me Indian. Televisions protrude from your porcelain skull. Images of teepees, cowboys in the West. Your eyes roll backwards, thinking of the past. Flashing before your eyes, images of my identity you've already constructed. I'm supposed to be the pipe-smoking, majestic fucking eagle of your dreams. I'm supposed to be the spawn of an alcoholic holocaust, rich on casino money. My blood becomes the soil beneath this nation's capital. You send your drills down, penetrating my skull with historical amnesia. You call me Indian, and I become invisible. A ghost you never knew existed. A ghost that will forever stay in the back of your mind, whisper in your ears a language more graveyard than linguistics. We will always be the guilty underbelly of American history. You will try to wipe us away like border school blackboards. You call me Indian. A corpse from the past whose demise is celebrated through sports teams and logos. My red skin is not for you to consume. You dissect my body in your mental laboratory. Microscope me beneath your cultural lens and assimilate it into your mental fabric, buried beneath a grave of dead American curriculum. You don't recognize me when I pass you in the street. You don't recognize me when you consume your Thanksgiving lies in November. You don't recognize me when you adorn your hipster headdress, college Indian parties. My name is Sarah Lee Circlebear, Paul Castaway, Alan Locke, Rextol Henry, Joanne Sherman, Miles Rough Surface. These are the names, the case files you don't recognize, because despite being targeted by the police at the highest rates, we are still ghosts screaming for you to recognize us. Too insignificant a number for you to acknowledge. How many of you have met 1% of the population? I was born believing I wasn't real. Born believing that the prayers to Tunkashila were empty worlds of something crazy inside my head. And not of a genocide still burning inside. The fire I found ignited was validation for my ancestral cosmology. I ghost dance the energy into my bones and transform that shit into justice. I died for the birth of your nation, yet here I stand. Lakotia owowa glakayo, speaking my tongue. I am not America. Pte oyate imataha, oglala lakota himacha, ewa shni nalenaji. I am the Buffalo Nation, part of the 7 council fires, the Ocheti Shakomi.
One more time, Marcus from Pine Ridge. And can you please keep that applause going for every young person that spoke today and for every young person that did not get a chance to speak today. I also want to ask y'all to please clap it up for our panelists. Please make some noise for our panelists. I believe we can't have any solutions without authentic conversation, and today was the start of an authentic conversation, and I urge you all, young people, take this outside of this room. You do not need permission to be great. So with that being said, we're gonna end on solutions. So I'm gonna bring up a young lady. She's gonna ask a question to you all. And we're gonna ask you all to please put your answers on the iTooAmEd hashtag, iTooEd, iTooEd hashtag. These are solutions from folks in your community. So I'm gonna bring my sis up. What was your name one more time? Ife. Clap it up for Ife!
Okay, so this question, we hear it a lot, but it's really, really, I feel, revolutionary. Like, if I could ask you guys just take a moment and seriously consider this. So after this whole entire week is over, after everything, what do we do when we go back? What can we do individually for our community to like really uplift one another when it comes to this education, really try to push each other to achieve their dreams? What can we do? Can we just say, like that one kid over there being bullied, do we just go stand up for him? If somebody's really feeling like dropping out, like what really can we do? I mean, I've noticed that we as colored people, and I don't know if I'm talking out of my butt or this, I don't know if I'm talking out of my butt or anything, but like, real talk. I texted this to my friend. Why do we expect those who lock us up in chains and hand us over our liberty? Like, if we look throughout history, I understand the whole entire government process and federal and everything like that, but it kind of takes too slow for us. So what can we do? We always had to build our own. So what can we do to build our own?
Thank you so much. Clap it up for Ifa, please make some noise. So dope, so we're wrapping it up. Couple of quick things. The first one is iTooEd. Tell us solutions that are already taking place in your community. The second thing I'm gonna ask y'all to do is find someone in this room and give them a love and appreciation. Hug them, thank them for something they did today or this week. Last but not least, dinner is on your own from now until 6:30. We're all gonna meet here at 6:30 for a dope, amazing play by one of my favorite artists. It's Spirit Trials by Dalek Brathaway. Y'all are awesome. Be sure to please close this conversation, couch this conversation in love. Thank you all so much. And y'all gotta go. Y'all have to leave this space at least immediately. I love y'all. And we're going to have all these amazing conversations right outside those doors. Y'all are awesome, by the way.